An alien princess and a human princess united, changing fate forever. The twin suns were beginning their descent, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers and lush floating gardens. The city shimmered with light, but Kilara felt a strange emptiness in her chest. She had lived here all her life, surrounded by beauty and tradition, yet she often wondered if there was something more beyond the rigid walls of her world. Lithera was a planet of wonder and strict rules. Its people were highly intelligent, their minds attuned to complex technologies that allowed them to harness energy from stars and manipulate matter in ways humans could barely imagine. Yet with all this power came a strict hierarchy. Every Litheran had a role, and every action was measured against the expectations of society. Kilara, as the daughter of the ruling council, had been trained since birth to follow these expectations. She was to lead, to protect, and to maintain tradition. But deep inside, Kilara longed for freedom, freedom to think differently, to explore, to connect with others without the constraints of royal duty. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. It was her advisor, Lauren, a tall, elegant figure with shimmering violet skin and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Princess," Lauren said gently, "the human delegation has arrived. Your presence is requested at the welcome ceremony." Kilara nodded, smoothing her ceremonial robes. She had been expecting this day. Humans were a young species compared to Litherans, but they had grown fast, spreading across nearby star systems and developing technologies that rivaled some of Lithera's own. This was the first official diplomatic mission from Earth, and her parents hoped it would strengthen ties and open trade agreements. Kilara, however, worried about the political games that were certain to follow. Meanwhile, on Earth, Princess Alara stared at the holographic map of Lithera, a planet of floating cities and glowing energy fields. Her parents, the King and Queen of Earth, had chosen her for this mission because they believed her curiosity and intelligence made her suitable for diplomacy. Alara, however, saw it as an adventure. She had grown tired of ceremonial balls and endless meetings. She wanted to witness the universe firsthand, to understand the species that humans had only read about in history books and scientific journals. As the human delegation's ship descended through Lithera's atmosphere, Alara felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She adjusted her uniform and checked her data pad one last time. She was prepared for diplomatic talks, but nothing could truly prepare her for meeting an alien princess in person. The stories humans told about Litherans described elegance, wisdom, and otherworldly intelligence. Alara wondered if the reality would match the tales. The ship landed on the central landing platform, surrounded by Litheran guards and ceremonial lights. Kilara watched from a distance as the humans disembarked, her curiosity piqued by their strange but familiar appearance. Among them was Alara, standing tall despite the heavy ceremonial attire. There was a confidence in the human princess's posture that caught Kilara's attention immediately. The welcome ceremony was elaborate, a mixture of music, light displays, and formal introductions. Kilara followed protocol, bowing slightly as Alara approached. Their eyes met, and for a moment the two princesses studied each other in silence. Despite the differences in skin, shape, and features, there was an unspoken recognition, a shared feeling of responsibility, curiosity, and the desire to make a difference. Yet tension hung in the air. Some Litheran council members whispered disapproval, wary of humans and their unpredictable nature. Likewise, human diplomats exchanged cautious glances, uncertain if Litherans could be trusted. Kilara felt the weight of tradition pressing on her shoulders, while Alara felt the expectations of her own world tugging at her. Despite this, the two princesses shared a private, knowing smile. They sensed that this encounter might be the start of something more than politics. Later, when the ceremony concluded, Kilara led Alara through the floating gardens of Lithera. The air was fragrant with alien flora, and streams of energy light danced among the plants. Alara marveled at the technology seamlessly blended with nature, a balance humans had only begun to dream about. "This planet, it's incredible," Alara whispered, her eyes wide with awe. Kilara smiled softly. "It is beautiful, but beauty can be deceptive. Lithera has rules, traditions, and expectations. Many people never see beyond them. That is why I often leave the palace alone to see the world as it truly is." Alara nodded. "I understand. Sometimes, even in my world, the rules feel like walls. But maybe the walls are meant to be challenged. Kilara's gaze sharpened. She had rarely met anyone who spoke so boldly, yet so thoughtfully. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "perhaps that is why we met today." Their walk led them to a quiet overlook where the two suns reflected on the energy streams below. They talked about their lives, their hopes, and their fears. Kilara described the pressures of being Lithara's heir, the expectations to maintain peace, and the fear that one wrong decision could destroy everything she loved. Ilara shared her experiences as a human princess, the loneliness of being watched constantly, and the frustration of wanting to act but being held back by protocol. Through their conversation, a bond began to form. They were two young women from entirely different worlds, yet they shared the same longing, to create a future not dictated by tradition or fear, but by understanding, courage, and unity. Suddenly, alarms rang through the palace. A misunderstanding had occurred in the outer city. A patrol mistook a human scout ship for a hostile intruder. Kilara and Ilara rushed to the situation. The humans and Litharans were moments away from a confrontation that could escalate into a serious conflict. Kilara acted quickly. Using her authority and calm voice, she spoke to both sides. "Stop! This is a misunderstanding. The humans are our guests. No one is to act without my command." Her words, filled with confidence and determination, halted the tension immediately. Ilara, following Kilara's lead, used her knowledge of human communication protocols to reassure the human scouts. She explained the mistake and helped coordinate a safe withdrawal. Together, the two princesses turned a potentially explosive situation into a demonstration of teamwork and diplomacy. After the incident, both sides calmed, and respect for the young princesses grew quietly among the observers. Kilara and Ilara realized that their cooperation had tangible power. They were not just guests or heirs. They were leaders in their own right, capable of bridging worlds that many believed could never truly connect. As night fell over Lithara, the city lights glimmered like stars scattered across the landscape. Kilara and Ilara stood together on the palace balcony once more, watching the twin moons rise in the sky. There was no magic in what they had done, only intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act differently from those around them. Yet it was enough to spark a new sense of hope. "We make a good team," Ilara said quietly, a smile tugging at her lips. Kilara nodded, her violet eyes reflecting the twin moons. "Perhaps we can do more than just hope. Perhaps we can change things together." Neither princess knew exactly what the future would bring, but one thing was certain. This was the beginning of a partnership that could alter the course of their worlds. In the vast galaxy, where differences often led to conflict, two young leaders had found common ground, courage, and a vision for unity. And so, under the twin moons of Lithara, the first seeds of an extraordinary alliance were planted, a bond that would challenge tradition, defy expectations, and begin to change fate forever. The day after the incident in the outer city, Lithara was alive with whispers. Rumors about the human delegation spread like wildfire. Some citizens were excited, imagining the possibilities of learning from humans, while others were skeptical, fearful of outsiders disrupting their delicate society. Kilara moved through the palace corridors with her usual grace, though her mind was preoccupied. She had barely slept, thinking about the human princess, Ilara. There was something different about her, something that felt like hope and curiosity rolled into one. Ilara, too, was restless. She had expected Lithara to be beautiful, technologically advanced, and strange, but the depth of its culture and the complexity of its politics exceeded even her expectations. After the incident with the scouts, she had earned a quiet respect from some Litharans, though others still looked at her with suspicion. The humans in the delegation were impressed by her calm handling of the situation, but Ilara knew that real work had only just begun. The two princesses met in a private garden, a place where Lithara's leaders sometimes went to think away from prying eyes. The garden floated above the city, supported by energy fields that shimmered like glass. Trees with translucent leaves glowed softly, and streams of liquid light flowed like rivers between the plants. It was the kind of place that inspired thought and reflection. Kilara turned to Ilara with a serious expression. "We did well yesterday, but there is more to this mission than just avoiding conflict. Humans and Litharans have always been cautious of each other. Some of our council members believe that contact should be limited. Others see opportunity. We need to convince them that cooperation is possible." Alara nodded. I understand, and I want to help, but first I want to understand your world better. I want to know how you live, how you think, and why things are the way they are here. Only then can we show both our people that working together is the best choice. Kalara's eyes softened. Many of her advisors would have dismissed Alara's curiosity as naive, but Kalara saw it differently. Very well, then I will show you what most humans never see. But you must promise to respect our customs. Some things are delicate, and even small mistakes can have large consequences. Alara smiled. I promise, and I'll try to learn quickly. Their first tour took them to the energy chambers beneath the palace. Lithra ran on a form of solar plasma that humans had only begun to study. The chambers glowed with an inner light, pulsing rhythmically as massive conduits channeled energy to the city above. Lithuran engineers moved with fluid precision, their hands guiding streams of energy that would have been impossible for a human to control without training. Kalara explained the process carefully. Our energy is not just power, it is part of our culture. It guides us, shapes us, and even reflects our emotions. Learning to use it responsibly is a matter of honor. Alara watched in awe. She could see why Lithurans were proud of their achievements. But she also noticed something else, a rigidity in the way the engineers followed orders, a hesitation to experiment or think outside the rules. It's beautiful, she said, but does it ever feel limiting? Kalara hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes. There is tradition here, and tradition can be a cage. That is why I often wander the city at night, to see the world outside the palace and understand what freedom really means. Alara's eyes sparkled. Then perhaps together we can find a way to balance tradition and change. Show your people that new ideas don't have to be dangerous. Over the next several days, the two princesses spent hours learning from each other. Kalara taught Alara the intricacies of Lithuran technology, showing her how to manipulate energy flows, how the floating gardens were maintained, and the subtle politics that governed daily life. Alara, in turn, shared human strategies for problem-solving, creativity, and diplomacy. She told Kalara about human schools, parliaments, and exploration missions that had traveled beyond known space. Their partnership soon became a subject of discussion in both worlds. Some humans admired Alara's courage and initiative. Many Lithurans were skeptical, whispering that a human could never truly understand their culture. Kalara, however, defended her companion. She may be human, Kalara told a council member during a meeting, but she has insight, courage, and intelligence, perhaps more than some of us give our own people credit for. Not everyone was convinced. One senior counselor, a Lithuran named Vorin, expressed open disdain. We cannot rely on humans. Their species is volatile and reckless. To place our trust in them is to risk our civilization. Kalara responded calmly, and yet yesterday it was humans and Lithurans working together that prevented conflict. Are we to ignore proof in favor of fear? Vorin grunted but said nothing more. Kalara knew resistance would persist, but she also knew that real change required patience and action, not just words. One evening, as the twin suns set, a message arrived from a nearby star system. A warlord, known for conquering unaligned planets and exploiting their resources, was gathering forces near the edge of human space. Intelligence reports suggested that both Earth and Lithura could be targets. The news spread quickly through the palace, creating an undercurrent of fear. Kalara and Alara convened immediately. This changes everything, Kalara said, pacing. We cannot simply wait for our advisors to decide. We must prepare together. Alara nodded, her mind racing. Then we need a plan that combines our strengths. Your technology, our strategy, and our people working as one. We can show them that cooperation is the only way to survive. They began drafting strategies, spending long hours in Lithura's war planning room. Kalara showed Alara holographic maps of the galaxy, detailing energy flows, defense stations, and trade routes. Alara suggested tactics for moving fleets quickly, coordinating supply lines, and rallying support from neutral systems. They argued, debated, and tested scenarios, sometimes late into the night. Through these sessions, their friendship deepened. They laughed together, challenged each other, and slowly built a mutual respect that went beyond diplomacy. However, danger was not confined to distant warlords. Within the palace, some Lithurans were plotting against Kalara and Alara's growing influence. Small acts of sabotage began to occur. Energy fields malfunctioned, supplies went missing, and false rumors circulated to discredit them. One night, an explosion rocked a training facility where Kelara was observing engineers. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the message was clear. Some Litherans did not want change. Kelara and Alara realized that their alliance would not only have to face external threats, but internal opposition as well. They decided to confront it directly, visiting different sectors of the city to speak with citizens, engineers, and young leaders. They held discussions about cooperation, the value of learning from others, and the need to unite against larger dangers. Slowly, people began to listen. Their words inspired hope and curiosity. The turning point came when Alara suggested a joint project, a new energy conduit that would connect Lithera's city with a nearby human station in orbit. The project required trust, coordination, and innovation from both species. Working together, Litherans and humans began to design and implement the conduit, proving that unity was possible in practical, tangible ways. As the project progressed, Kelara and Alara found themselves spending more time in each other's company, not just as leaders but as friends. They shared stories of childhood, of dreams, and even of fears. Alara spoke of the loneliness of being a princess, constantly watched and judged. Kelara admitted that she often felt trapped by tradition, wishing she could make choices for herself rather than for the expectations of her world. One evening, as they observed the conduit's energy flow, glowing brightly against the night sky, Alara turned to Kelara. "Do you ever think that we were meant to meet? That our worlds were supposed to collide so we could do something bigger than ourselves?" Kelara looked at the flowing energy, reflecting in her violet eyes. "I don't know about destiny," she said slowly, "but I know that meeting you has changed my world, and I hope that together we can change many more." Before they could dwell on their thoughts, an urgent alert sounded. Scouts reported unusual activity in the outer colonies, ships gathering in formation, firing drills and signals that matched known warlord tactics. Both princesses understood the gravity of the situation. The threat was no longer distant, it was approaching. Alara and Kelara convened their advisors. "We must prepare for conflict," Kelara said firmly. "But we will not fight blindly. We will fight smart, with strategy, cooperation, and the strength of both our peoples. And we will do it together." For the first time, humans and Litherans working side by side felt a true sense of unity. Soldiers trained together, engineers collaborated, and the city buzzed with determination. Where fear had once divided them, purpose now bound them. That night, as the twin moons rose over Lithera, Kelara and Alara stood on the palace balcony once more, watching the stars. Ships from both human and Litheran forces were preparing, moving silently in formation above the planet. Alara broke the silence. "Whatever happens next, I'm glad we're facing it together." Kelara nodded. "Together," she agreed. The word felt heavier than ever, filled with promise, courage, and responsibility. In that moment, both princesses understood that their friendship and partnership were not just about diplomacy. They were about survival, hope, and the possibility of changing fate forever. The galaxy beyond Lithera was dangerous, full of unknown enemies and challenges. But for the first time, two leaders from completely different worlds believed that unity could overcome any obstacle. And so, as the night deepened, the work continued. Plans were refined, alliances solidified, and a vision of a future where humans and Litherans could cooperate began to take shape. A vision that would require courage, intelligence, and the unshakable bond of two extraordinary princesses. The night was dark over Lithera, but the skies above the floating city were alive with movement. Human and Litheran fleets had taken positions, their ships casting shadows across the planet's glowing surface. Princess Kelara stood on the command balcony, her eyes scanning the vast expanse of ships and stars. Beside her, Princess Alara held a holographic map that displayed the approaching forces of the rogue warlord. The fleet was larger than anyone had expected. Hundreds of warships, heavily armed and moving with precision, approached from the outer colonies. Their goal was clear: conquer Lithera and Earth's influence and claim their resources. The council had debated options for days, but Kelara and Alara had already formulated a plan that relied on both intelligence and cooperation, rather than sheer force. Kelara turned to Alara. "Are your people ready?" she asked, her voice steady but intense. Alara nodded. "They are, and so are yours. We have trained together, shared strategies, and learned from each other. If anyone can lead these fleets to success, it's us. The warlord's forces moved closer, and the calm surface of the galaxy suddenly seemed tense with anticipation. Scouts reported that the enemy had studied Lithoran defenses carefully and would likely attempt to exploit any weakness. Kelara's mind raced. She had seen simulations, she had trained, and she had hoped her fleet could hold, but reality was always more challenging than theory. "Begin the energy shield deployment," she commanded. "Ensure the perimeter is reinforced and all civilian sectors are protected." Litharan engineers moved with precision, energy flowing into barriers that shimmered with power. Alara coordinated the human ships, arranging them in a formation designed to intercept enemy attacks while maintaining flexibility for countermaneuvers. The first wave of warlord ships entered the system with a sudden rush, firing energy pulses at Lithara's outer defenses. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and soldiers scrambled to their stations. Kelara and Alara remained calm, issuing commands efficiently, their teamwork seamless. Kelara's voice was firm, authoritative, guiding the Litharan ships, while Alara's suggestions optimized human tactics and movement. Despite their preparation, the enemy was relentless. One warship managed to breach the outer shield, heading straight for a civilian energy hub. Kelara acted instantly, diverting energy to reinforce the barrier while Alara coordinated a squadron of human fighters to intercept the intruder. The combined effort worked, the hub remained intact, and the intruding ship was forced to retreat. Watching the battle unfold, Kelara realized how much she had learned from Alara. The human princess had a talent for seeing opportunities and solutions where others saw only chaos. Likewise, Alara observed Kelara's precision and calm decisiveness, qualities she knew she could never master without practice. Together, they formed a leadership duo that inspired everyone around them. Hours passed, and the warlord's fleet continued their assault. Explosions erupted in the upper atmosphere, energy beams crossed the sky, and ships from both human and Litharan sides moved with impressive coordination. Despite the intensity, Kelara and Alara remained focused. During a brief pause in the battle, Kelara received a report from her scouts. The warlord was attempting a surprise maneuver, aiming to isolate a section of the city and force surrender through fear. "They want to divide us," Kelara said, her eyes narrowing. "They think we cannot act together under pressure. We will prove them wrong." Alara leaned over the holographic map. "We need to bait them. If we lure the smaller fleet toward the energy conduit, we can trap them using the combined force of our fleets. Timing will be critical." Kelara nodded. "Do it, and position the strike teams near the outer colonies. We cannot allow them to regroup." The two princesses executed the plan flawlessly. The enemy fleet, overconfident and aggressive, took the bait. Litharan and human ships moved in perfect synchronization, trapping the warlord's forces within a net of energy fields and precise attacks. The rogue fleet struggled, then began to retreat under pressure. The first major victory had been won. Even as relief swept through the city, Kelara and Alara knew the battle was not over. Intelligence suggested the warlord had a flagship hidden near a nearby asteroid belt, a heavily armed command ship controlling the remaining forces. If they did not neutralize it, the threat would persist. "Prepare a strike team," Kelara said. "We will end this before it spreads further." Alara selected the human pilots, while Kelara chose the Litharan officers with knowledge of energy manipulation. The team assembled quickly, moving toward the asteroid belt under Kelara and Alara's guidance. The flagship emerged from hiding, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. The approach was dangerous. Any misstep could result in a catastrophic loss. The princesses devised a daring plan. Alara would lead a small squadron to draw the flagship out, using feints and rapid maneuvers, while Kelara would manipulate energy fields to disable the ship's shields. Communication was key. Any mistake could be fatal. The battle began with precision. Alara's squadron executed daring maneuvers, dodging enemy fire and luring the flagship toward the trap. Kelara monitored the energy patterns, sending pulses to disrupt the flagship's shields. Sparks and energy arcs danced in the void as the two forces collided. At a critical moment, a Litharan engineer reported that a miscalculation could overload the shield system, causing a massive explosion. Kelara adjusted instantly, rerouting energy while maintaining the offensive. Alara, trusting Kelara's skill, executed a risky maneuver, flying close to the flagship to target its control systems. The flagship's defenses weakened. The rogue warlord, realizing his forces were trapped, attempted a desperate attack. But the combined human and Lithuanian team acted as one, neutralizing weapons and forcing the flagship into surrender. The warlord's fleet scattered, retreating into the void. When the flagship was finally secured, cheers erupted across both human and Lithuanian forces. Soldiers and engineers alike recognized the unprecedented cooperation that had won the day. Kelara and Alara, though exhausted, allowed themselves a small moment of relief. They had faced one of the greatest threats their worlds had encountered and had triumphed, not through raw power alone, but through intelligence, strategy, and unity. The aftermath of the battle brought a new sense of respect and admiration for the two princesses. Lithuanian council members who had doubted Alara's influence acknowledged her courage and insight. Human officers praised Kelara's leadership and precision. The combined fleets had proven that cooperation across species was not only possible but powerful. In the quiet moments following the battle, Kelara and Alara stood together on the balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected off the damaged but recovering buildings, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter in celebration of their victory. Alara broke the silence. "We did it together," Kelara nodded. "Yes, but the galaxy is vast. There will be more threats, more challenges. We cannot be complacent." Alara smiled. "Then we keep learning, we keep leading, and we face whatever comes next together." Their bond, forged through danger and shared responsibility, had grown stronger than ever. They were no longer just princesses. They were leaders, uniting their worlds in ways no one had imagined. The victory also marked a turning point for both species. Citizens on Lithera and humans in nearby systems began to see the potential of unity. Trade agreements were revisited with optimism. Cultural exchanges were proposed, and young leaders looked to Kelara and Alara as examples of courage and cooperation. The princesses, however, knew that their work was far from over. The rogue warlord had been defeated, but other factions, distrustful of humans or Litherans, would continue to challenge the new alliance. The two leaders spent long hours planning the next steps: diplomacy, defense, education, and cooperation. One evening, after the celebrations had quieted, Kelara and Alara sat together in the floating gardens. Streams of energy flowed around them like rivers of light. "Do you ever think about what could have happened if we hadn't met?" Alara asked quietly. Kelara thought for a moment. "I do. I imagine a galaxy where fear rules, where we are divided, and where the warlord might have succeeded. But then I remember that we did meet and we acted, and that changes everything." Alara smiled. "It feels like destiny." Kelara shook her head gently. "Maybe it isn't destiny, maybe it's choice. We chose to act, to trust each other, to lead together. That is what changed the future." The two princesses sat in silence, watching the stars, understanding that the universe was vast and full of danger, but also full of possibilities. They had proven that courage, intelligence, and cooperation could triumph over fear and division. And they knew that together there was no challenge too great. As the night deepened, the city of Lithera glowed below them, a symbol of resilience, unity, and hope. The battle had been won, but the journey had only just begun. Kelara and Alara were ready to face the future, side by side, inspiring their peoples and shaping a galaxy where trust and collaboration could overcome any threat. The morning after the battle, Lithera was quiet, almost eerily so. The city was still recovering from the chaos of the attack, though the damage had been minor thanks to the swift coordination of human and Lithuanian forces. Citizens walked the streets, curious and cautious, as engineers repaired energy conduits and rebuilt sections of the floating gardens. There was a sense of hope, but also understanding that the galaxy remained unpredictable and dangerous. Princess Kelara stood on the palace balcony, gazing at the horizon. Her violet eyes reflected the shimmering glow of the city below, and for the first time she felt the weight of victory and the responsibility it brought. Victory had proven that humans and Lithuanians could work together, but real change required more than a single battle. It required trust, education, and cultural understanding. Alara joined her quietly, holding a tablet filled with reports from both human and Lithuanian leaders. "The fleets are stationed safely, and the warlord's forces have been neutralized for now," she said. "But people are still wary. We need something more than just military success to truly unite our worlds." Kelara nodded thoughtfully. Agreed. That is why we must focus on building connections, not just defenses. If we only rely on fear of attack, the bond will be temporary. We need something lasting. Together, they began planning the first Interstellar Council, an assembly designed to bring humans, Litherans, and allied species together to discuss trade, exploration, and mutual defense. It was an ambitious idea, and many council members were skeptical. Some argued that humans were unpredictable, while others believed Litherans were too set in their traditions to cooperate fully. Kilara addressed the council with determination. The galaxy is vast, and threats will always emerge. But yesterday we showed that unity between our peoples is possible. We must continue that path, not just to defend ourselves, but to create a future where cooperation, knowledge, and understanding guide our actions. Ilara followed, her voice clear and persuasive. We have an opportunity to inspire the next generation, to show that differences are strengths, not weaknesses. We can create a galaxy where fear and suspicion no longer dictate decisions. But it begins with us, and it begins now. The council listened, and slowly, one by one, the skeptics began to nod. They could not ignore the proof in front of them. Two princesses from different worlds had led their peoples to victory through intelligence, strategy, and trust. The Interstellar Council was approved, and the first session was scheduled to take place in the coming months. While preparations were underway, Kilara and Ilara took time to visit various sectors of Lithra and human colonies nearby. They spoke with engineers, soldiers, students, and ordinary citizens. They demonstrated not just leadership, but empathy, listening to concerns and sharing knowledge. Their presence inspired young leaders from both species to think beyond the boundaries of tradition. In the heart of the city, the Joint Energy Conduit project, started weeks before the warlords' attack, was nearing completion. The project had become more than just a symbol of cooperation. It was a practical demonstration of how human creativity and Litheran technology could combine to achieve something impossible alone. Engineers and scientists from both species worked side by side, sharing techniques and learning from each other. The conduit glowed with a soft, steady light, connecting Lithra to a human station orbiting nearby. One evening, as Kilara and Ilara watched the final energy tests, Kilara turned to her companion. "This is more than I imagined, not just the conduit, but what it represents. People are beginning to see that cooperation works, and that fear is no longer the only guide." Ilara smiled. "It's just the beginning, but the beginning matters. If we inspire even a small portion of our worlds, the impact could be enormous." Their focus soon shifted to diplomacy. Messages were sent to neighboring systems, inviting representatives to attend the first Interstellar Council. Delegates from human colonies, Litheran sectors, and other allied civilizations confirmed their attendance. The council would be a historic event, the first time such diverse species convened not for war, but for mutual understanding and planning for the future. Despite the optimism, challenges persisted. Some factions had not forgiven past grievances. Pirates, rogue scientists, and small warlords still threatened weaker systems. Kilara and Ilara recognized that maintaining peace required constant vigilance, quick action, and a willingness to compromise without sacrificing core values. They began organizing training programs for diplomats, engineers, and leaders to prepare for the council and future crises. Amid the preparations, the princesses found moments to reflect on their journey. Sitting in the floating gardens one night, the twin moons of Lithra casting silver light over the streams of energy, Ilara asked quietly, "Do you ever think about how far we've come? From strangers in a ceremony to leading fleets, saving our people, and building a council." Kilara smiled, a rare softness in her expression. "I do. It feels almost unreal, but every choice we made, every risk we took brought us here. I never imagined that one human and one Litheran could make such a difference." Ilara laughed softly. "Maybe we're not so different after all. We both wanted to make a change, to do more than follow orders, and we found each other to help make it happen." Kilara nodded. "Perhaps that is the lesson for our people, that difference is not weakness and trust is not folly. Together we are stronger than apart, and if we can show that, then the galaxy can change." The council convened in a grand chamber floating above Lithra's capital. Delegates from dozens of worlds arrived, their species, shapes, and technologies diverse beyond imagination. Holographic displays projected key points of discussion, while translators allowed every voice to be heard. Kelara and Alara presided together, an unusual but powerful sight. A Lithuanian princess with calm authority and a human princess with confident determination. The opening session was tense. Some delegates were wary, testing the two princesses with questions, challenges, and indirect criticism. But Kelara and Alara met every challenge with patience and clarity. They emphasized cooperation, mutual respect, and the practical benefits of working together. They shared examples from the recent battle against the warlord and demonstrated how joint efforts could overcome threats more efficiently than division and conflict ever could. By the end of the session, attitudes began to shift. Delegates who had arrived with skepticism left with new ideas, inspired by the example set by Kelara and Alara. Discussions were lively but productive, and agreements were reached on shared technology development, trade routes, and collaborative defense strategies. It was a historic day, a turning point that marked the beginning of a new era of interstellar unity. Even as the council worked, Kelara and Alara never lost sight of the people they served. They visited schools, training centers, and neighborhoods, meeting citizens and sharing knowledge. Young Lithuanians and humans alike saw two leaders who valued learning, courage, and cooperation over fear or power. The princesses' actions sparked a cultural shift, encouraging curiosity, collaboration, and empathy across species. Months passed, and the galaxy began to feel a subtle but profound change. Smaller conflicts were resolved through diplomacy, joint projects flourished, and communication networks expanded between human and Lithuanian territories. Kelara and Alara remained at the center, guiding, mentoring, and leading with a combination of intelligence, courage, and vision. One quiet evening, as the twin moons rose over the floating city, Kelara and Alara stood side by side, looking out at the glowing conduit connecting Lithura to the human station above. Ships moved in coordinated patterns through the sky, symbolizing unity and purpose. The city below was alive with optimism, as if the people themselves could sense that a new chapter had begun. Alara broke the silence. "Do you think this is what we dreamed of? A galaxy where fear doesn't rule, where trust is stronger than suspicion?" Kelara's eyes reflected the shimmering energy streams. "It is a start, and it will grow. Change does not happen overnight, but every step we take, every choice we make shapes the future, and together we can keep shaping it." Alara smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and responsibility. "Then we keep going. No matter the challenges, no matter the dangers, we've seen what we can do when we work together. Imagine what's possible if we continue." Kelara extended her hand, and Alara took it. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of a promise to each other, to their people, and to the future. Together, they had changed the course of their worlds. Together, they would continue to guide their civilizations toward unity, understanding, and hope. As the stars sparkled in the sky above Lithura, the two princesses knew that their journey was far from over. New challenges would arise, old prejudices would linger, and the galaxy would always be full of uncertainty. But they also knew that no matter what came next, they were not alone. They had each other, and through their example, they had inspired countless others to act with courage, intelligence, and compassion. In the months and years that followed, the Interstellar Council became a model for cooperation across species. Technology was shared, education programs were expanded, and joint expeditions explored regions of space that had once been considered too dangerous or unreachable. Lithura and Earth became symbols of hope, demonstrating that unity and trust could overcome fear and division. Kelara and Alara continued to lead, side by side, their bond unshakable. Citizens and leaders from across the galaxy looked to them as examples of what could be achieved when intelligence, courage, and collaboration guided action. They had faced fear, danger, and skepticism, and had emerged stronger, proving that true leadership was not about domination, but about vision, understanding, and connection. And so, under the twin moons of Lithura, with stars stretching endlessly above, the two princesses stood together, knowing that their worlds, and the galaxy itself, were forever changed. They had united not just in friendship, but in purpose. And that unity, born of courage and intelligence, would continue to guide countless lives, shaping a future filled with hope, collaboration, and the promise of a galaxy where differences were celebrated. Challenges were met with wisdom, and the fate of all was forever brighter. An alien princess and a human princess united, changing fate forever.